ProIFR is one of the best rated schools in Vancouver, but how does it stack up when we talk with some real students there? Let's find out. Hello my friends, welcome to Late Departure. I'm Adam, and today we're continuing on my journey to hopefully become a commercial pilot and achieve my late in life dream of changing my career here and, going into the skies, into the crazy blue yonder and just enjoying life. That's the most important part. In today's video, we're talking about ProIFR, the Professional Flight Center in Boundary Bay Airport. And this, as you know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I'd gone there in person, I talked with people, I've talked with instructors. There's a specific instructor there that I really want to fly with. And it was on the top of my list, to be honest, but after talking with some of the students who currently attend there, I'm not so sure. So let's get into this. I talked with some students there, and let's start with the very basic thing. So what is the airplane instructor availability like? Remember, if you want to learn how to fly, you got to get in the air, you got to get in a plane, you got to do it, right? And so it was really disheartening to hear, and I actually heard a little bit about this when I went there in person. They said that it's almost like a shark feeding frenzy. When they have bookings at the beginning of, or at the end of the month, basically everyone logs in and tries to book as much as they can just to try to get a spot. And right now they have around 150 students for about 22 planes, which, what they told me anyways, which is quite a lot, especially compared to some of the other schools. And they, unlike some of the other schools, are accepting international students. So as you can imagine, it's going to be quite overflowing as they're taking all the spillover from other schools that aren't taking international students. So one of the people that I talked with said that they could barely get any day bookings. They had to book 2 to 3 weeks in advance every time they wanted a booking. And there's so many students, but there aren't that many planes. And the problem is that they just can't keep up with the demand that they have right now. One of the students said that they think they're taking on more than they possibly can, possibly to make some more bucks. They're a business, that's just the way it is, but it is what it is there. And he says that, and the student said that they really have to fight for their spot. And if the schedule isn't going the way that you want it to, you have to text your instructor, you have to make sure that you're always available. And if, for example, you want to get up more often, you have to make sure that your schedule is totally available because they might contact you in case of a cancellation or something last minute. This is very similar, and I think a lot of schools, even though the students I talked with here said that this is really tough for them, as far as I've seen, a lot of other schools are also pretty difficult to book at. Some of them you have to book at months in advance to get into. So this is maybe about average, but just to, again, taking all this with a grain of salt, because this is just the experiences of a few students, not out of 150 students. So take with that what you will. Now, in terms of them forcing you to buy supplemental materials, so one of the students said they tried to push that student to buy the book that they had instead of going online to get it, but the student ended up going to get it somewhere else. That particular student also said that, it depends on the instructor. Not all the instructors are like that, but just the instructor the student had at the time seemed to be like that. So again, with a grain of salt. And do they push ratings onto their students? And this student said no. Like, this student saw the syllabus. The student tried to, basically was just trying to get into the best flight school at the cheapest price. Now, as far as I've seen, like I said in the last video, most of the schools are pretty equal in terms of pricing, but some of them have slightly better prices in certain programs. So for example, ProIFR might have better prices in like IFR and multi ratings. So this is something to keep in mind if you're really concerned about saving that extra $10, $15, which, hey, that money adds up, right? Then perhaps this is a place you might want to look at if you are okay with the fact that you might not be able to get bookings as often as you want to. But basically, one of the other students said that, they went in, they did it, and they didn't get forced on the ratings or anything like that, which is really the bottom line, that they're not forcing students to complete things a certain way just so they can make extra money. That's important. So one of the other questions I have is, how many students actually complete the courses, and how long does it take them to complete these courses? And these students, they said that, on average, considering if you compare with the other schools, it doesn't take that long. But with ProIFR, one of the things they said was really disappointing was that it seemed that they really just wanted to put in the bare minimum to get you the ratings that you needed. So basically, it feels like a business. They didn't go above and beyond. It really felt to these students like the instructors were there just to build hours, which, to be honest, the instructors are there to build hours so they can go on and do commercial flying or something like that. But the fact that you can feel that, I'm not too good with that. I don't really like the fact that it's noticeable that they're there just to build hours and that the business is there to be a business. I feel like they should really make the customers feel like they're most important and cared for. And this is a contrast, especially when we compare with the students from Pacific Flying Club who felt like the school really did care about them, and that the non-profit nature of the school really made it seem that business came second and students came first. So the next thing is it pay as you go? Is it pay up front? It isn't pay as you go, but one thing that they told me was that the registration fee was actually quite high. They said that it could be anywhere up to like $700,000 for the registration fee, compared with some of the other schools where the registration fee is only around $200. Now, I haven't personally confirmed this, so again, take this with a grain of salt, but if you are looking to register there, maybe you can comment in the comments below whether or not this is really true, and if it is, that's unfortunate, because that is a big registration fee, especially when you're comparing other schools that are only about $200. So the exact quote about the registration fee was, the only thing I found kind of weird is I went in and they were like, you got to spend $700 on admission and $300 on registration. It took weeks before I could even get with an instructor. So more specifically on the registration, so some of the students said, they had to pay $700 on admission and then $300 more on registration. And then it would take weeks before they even got an instructor. And then they had to wait for a long time before they could even find out what was happening with their program. And so that's pretty sad if you put down that much money and then you're waiting that long for an instructor. And I can personally kind of attest to this right now because I've been talking with an instructor. So I kind of have an instructor if I were to go there, but I've been waiting for a long time to hear whether or not I would actually be able to start there or do anything there. So there's a bit of truth behind this that I've also personally experienced, but that's just something to keep in mind. If you're going to pay $1,000, they should be putting up the instructors, the resources. And some of these students I talked with said, it just didn't feel professional, that, when you pay something, you're supposed to get a certain service for it. And one of the students even said if they keep doing stuff like this as they're doing their ratings there, they're just going to go to a different flight school because, if you're going to pay up front, you want to get what you pay for right away, right? Oh, mandatory plane brake. Look how slow that plane is going. Well, you don't see too many Cessnas landing at Vancouver International Airport, but hey, right now it's not that busy. Why not? Seems fun. So the next question was, do you have to pay for extra classroom time or do they force any extra ground time? And one of the students said, not really, they're pretty open. They don't force extra ground time, except if you don't prepare for the classes, in which case they will sit you down and they will do extra preparation for you. But again, that's fairly standard as far as I've seen. A lot of the schools, they seem, a lot of instructors I've talked with as well, they say, if the student's not prepared, they got to be prepared before the flight. And either they sit you down and they prepare you more, or they send you back home. So, it's one or the other there. That being said, so in terms of the maintenance, both the students said that, the maintenance was pretty good. They were able to see the maintenance records, no problem. And they said that really the maintenance at a school that big, it has to be good because, if something happens to the students, it totally messes up the school's reputation, costs them a lot of money over the long term. So they said, really maintenance, they felt pretty safe in the planes, was no problem there. So another thing that's always important to me is finding out whether or not the school is willing to sit down with the students and actually help them map out their goals. And the students I talked with unfortunately said that it didn't feel that way, that for them personally, when they went in, they kind of felt like they had to get in, do their rating, and get out as soon as possible. One of the students came from a nonprofit background or nonprofit school background, so they experienced, of course, something maybe more similar to Pacific Flying Club, where there's a little bit more care, or care was placed a little bit higher on the priority list in front of making profits. So again, take this with a grain of salt, but this is just the personal experience of some of the students there. So that's ProIFR, and again, take this with a grain of salt. Like, I have a little bit of experience here because I've been looking seriously at going to ProIFR for quite a while here, but the more that I hear from students and the more that I've kind of experienced myself in terms of what's happening right now. So I know right now they're apparently going through an audit, and they're dealing with a whole bunch of things, and also the CFI there was out for a few weeks, possibly to COVID or something. So, there are reasons why everything is delayed here, and that's something you can take into consideration. Like, if you really want to go to the school, and I have talked with a lot of students on Facebook who are like, yeah, I really want to go to ProIFR, great reviews, heard good things, definitely go and check it out. But at the same time, maybe also keep the words of some of these students in mind. So I personally am really listening seriously to these students I talk with, and this has really changed my priority list. And ProIFR was at the very top before, and now it's somewhere near the bottom, because it is kind of what I worried about that a big school would be. So that's it for today's review. Again, if you have any questions, comments, please let me know in the comments down below. You can email me from the YouTube page directly as well with questions if you really want to. But so I'm still looking for schools, still browsing around, and I'm going to keep doing some more of these reviews. So hopefully you'll join me for those, and I look forward to you joining me again as I continue on my late departure journey, hopefully proving that it's never too late to take up the career in aviation. So hopefully everyone there stays safe, flies safe, don't get sick, and I'll see you next time.